Good day. This video will demonstrate how to use Data Grid View in Microsoft Visual Studio to update data into database. I'm using one of my projects as example. This is Warehouse Management System software. I'm upgrading its function to enable it release multiple items from warehouse in one time. I want to remain current function with single item issuance method. So I make add another tab control in the issuance tab page and specify two different issuance methods. Adjusting controls so they look standardized. Enabled auto scroll and tab control properties. Configure tab pages and tab control properties. Give each pages with unique names so later on we can do coding to control how they're going to work. Change the label text of tab pages to display their function. Now I'm connecting the database by using Microsoft Visual Studio Server Explorer feature. As this software currently using Access's database, so I selected data source type as Microsoft Access database file. Meanwhile, if to connect SQL Server, you may select the data source type as Microsoft SQL Server. Then, click Browse button to look for the database file and click OK. Connection success. Now I can view my database table from Microsoft Visual Studio. Previously, we only released one item at one time, so we only tracking by the time. But since we are going to release multiple items in one time, so we will have to get a tracking number to keep track the issuance status. This is traceability that requiring quality management system, and also tracking with unique serial number are more efficient than tracking by time alone. The concepts are similar as one human being only have one ID number, but we can dig a lot of information from that ID number. Adding Data Grid View controls. Link the Data Grid View with our database by clicking the play button on top of Data Grid View control. I called it play button because it did look like play button. Items receiving an issuance information store in table STO. So we shall tick table STO and then click finish. Now the Data Grid View control will fill with the column name same as table STO. By edit column, we can change the column name at the header text and properties of each column. We may also remove any other column that have unnecessary to be viewed by user. Usually I start with double click on the control that I want to do coding for. Even it auto-generate an opening of subroutine that not is what I want. But no worry, we can always change it here. What I want is action after user done input. So the handler I'm looking for should be cell and edit here. Let me delete just now that. First thing first, my way of coding, always put a title for a subroutine or function. This way I can always know what they were coded for. I learned this practice after I created too much module and done too much coding. If without title or remark, I have to suffer to relook over these coding to understand what have I done. Data Grid View have a lot column, so we must know which column and row that user just finished input. We can know it by extract information from event argument. I get edit column to store the column index, then edit row to store the row index. Then, in order to save time from typing same word too many times, I use with syntax. With the control name of Data Grid View control, whenever I want to manipulate the property in it, I no need to retype its name. I can simplify by start with a dot. We should put in consideration if users never key in anything and leave the cell. This will fire the subroutine of cell and edit as well. The system may call out error when users do so. Over here I put 2 lines of code to prevent system error when the input of user are null or empty. System shall exit subroutine immediately, else it will continue to next line of code. Here I put if statement to identify which column that users just edit when the column index are 0. That's mean user just finished their action of input item code. Let's check back the data grid view setting. Back to interface design view, open the data grid view setting by clicking on the play button. Then click edit column. The sequence number of columns start with 0. Then the second column index are 1, third column are 2, vice versa. Let's go back to coding view. From the item code input by users, I construct the SQL command string to pull out all information of the item code that I create in early. Define a data table, REC, to store the data from Access database. At this point, I make another prevention for error message to be called out by checking the data stored in data table, REC, by counting its data rows. If no data was stored, data table shall not contain any data rows. If such case happen, system shall exit subroutine, or else it will continue loading for else statement. So, first information we want to get from the item code or item name. Based on my table design, I stored item code information in table called MTL. In this table, each item code are unique and only have one line of data. So I can simply define a data rows at table index 0, then define a string item name and store the table data of table columns name MTL in it. Then manipulate item name cell in data grid view to display item name accordingly. If I want to check whole table column, I can simply go to design view, again click on the play button of data grid view control, then click on preview data link. Let's go back to coding view and continue for others. Unit of measurement or one of the data shall be viewed after users key in the item code. Same thing as I did with item name. Here come the warehouse location. If you have same system online experience as me, you shall already learn that let users choose correct data are way more error-proof than let users manually key in. So from here, I made combo box for data grid view. I shall show you how to create combo box for data grid view control later on after we finish coding it here. Next, similar to combo box, we need to load selection list into combo box. But before that, we need to clear whatever inside the combo box first. Here I construct another SQL command to query data from STO table and get the information of which location of warehouse of the item keeping. You may aware that the method I perform SQL data query by only one line. If you are interested to know how I made it, leave comment below and let me know if you really want me to share my method to you. Then next, move through data rows and get the warehouse location from it before I add into combo box. Check if similar data already have in combo box. If not, then proceed to add into combo box. Next, I'm going to show you how to create combo box for data grid view control. I done this in embedded module, which I call it subfunctional controls. Sometimes you may need to do the same coding over and over again. Instead of keep repeating same coding, I make subroutine in a module. Then I can call it out anytime by providing data value. If you don't understand how this works, leave your comment below. I might live stream and explain to you. But for now, let's focus on how to create combo box for data grid view and module subfunctional controls. I created a subroutine as public so that it can be called out at other modules. This constructor takes two arguments, the DGV, which is of type data grid view, and column index, which is of type integer. The purpose of this constructor is to create an instance of the class and initialize it with the specified data grid view and column index. As usual, title shall put under here. Then create an empty data grid view combo box column with the name as D, G, B, C, B, X1. Due to original column were text box type, but because I still need its name, so that later on I can remove it and replace with combo box type. Hence I created another string data to keep the original column's name. After that, set the properties of DGVCB zone, give it a name. This is be used to update data in database table later on. Then set the header name same with original one. Next, the width of drop-down list and the width of the DGVCB zone column, and also TH visual type of the combo box. Now we can remove the original column and insert the new combo box column at the same place by specify the column index. Back to main page class. Call out the constructor at initial loading routine. Provide the argument that needed. First argument are the data grid view control that I want to modify. Next is the column index that I want it to be combo box. At the side remark, what is the column used for? Thanks for following so far. Now we should try a run and check how it's look like. As you can see, first column, third column, and fourth column now are with arrow. Once I selected an item code, third column and fourth column shall show us the warehouse location keeping that item. For warehouse management system, quantity are important, so I need to create function to display current quantity available to release. The quantity shall appear after I choose the warehouse location from combo box, so I could use the same handler, the cell and edit handler. Back to the cell and edit handler, put a title. Trigger action when column of warehouse location being changed, whereby the column index or 2. Construct SQL query command, query for the balanced quantity by SQL bracket from STO table, match criteria for item code and warehouse location. Then manipulate the column of inventory to show current available quantity ready to release. Next action is to prevent users from release any quantity when the balanced quantity are 0. So once the results are less than or equal to 0, we shall lock the quantity column, prevent users from keying any intended quantity to release from warehouse. Here I configure the cell tooltip to show the users that there were no any available quantity for issuers. I also need to consider error proofing about users release quantity greater than available inventory. This action shall trigger after users key in the intended quantity to release at data grid view. So again, we shall add such function in the cell and edit handler. For column to key in intended quantity for release, the column index or 6. One more thing to consider, users might not key in number. Instead, they might key in character beside number. If they do so, system will call error for fail to compare intended quantity to release and current available quantity. To prevent such error, check is user's input are numeric or not. If not, exit the routine immediately. My advice, if you want to do math calculation or comparison, don't directly get straight to perform calculation with number. Always convert to numeric type such as integer or double data type. Over here I compared number keyed in by users with system available quantity. If the number keyed in by users greater than system available quantity, then system will prompt a message box to inform warehouse have not enough quantity to release, and it will change users input according to maximum quantity that available in system. Else, system won't do anything and allow users to proceed. Now, let's try run. Next, I will show you how to update new data to database table. First, create functional button. I copied from previous page so that I no need to set the visual properties again. Adjust the anchor so when users maximize the window, buttons will move accordingly. Give a name to buttons. Then double click on the button to go into opening subroutine and ready for coding. Let's coding for cancel button first, because it is this simple. I get the same handler from cancel button of previous page by double click on it. Then I just simply put the handler action for new cancel button. As I said earlier, try to simplify our coding. Don't make the same coding line repeat too many times. Coding line here referred to subfunctional control, which I created to handle behavior of all controls. It will clear everything at the specified container and back to initial condition. If you are interested how to make this, leave comment below. I shall make another video to explain. For release button code, I shall make the coding in subfunctional control module. I create a callout method with two arguments. First argument shall mention which control. Second argument shall mention the action to be performed. Take note here, same routine will be used when we want to perform action like modify or delete. So second argument to mention the action are necessary. The reason I don't directly code at main page class because I try to make every coding neat. This is my habit of coding. Before I start coding, let me rehearse SQL syntax of insert data into table. What we're seeing at Notepad are a simple SQL command to insert data line into table. A table name need to state it and those columns that require to update with data. This is first part. Then the second part of the data portion. Start with value, then in the bracket. Stated the value according to the sequence of column as stated on first part. Later you will see why I emphasize this SQL syntax. Now, go back to coding page. Define an array list column code. This is array list will use the stored column name, which is what I just explained about SQL syntax. Another two lists are not going to use here, but I still need to define because later on I will need to use for call out function from my library. Then use loop method get column name from data grid view. For each column that have property name stated, they will be stored in column code array list. Some column and database table need to update as well, but they didn't include in data grid view, so I have to manually add their column name in the array list. After done storing all column name required, now go through each row in data grid view for values to be inserted. Each row have different value for each column, so I define another list inside the loop statement, so the list will contain correct data from every row. To prevent error message when actually using this system, we must consider user may not key in item code at data grid column 0, but remain data at other column. So I put this to code to ensure item code had been inserted so that the next action could be proceed. For every WMS system, the system designer must have specified methodology to store data. Each designer have their own methodology. For me, I keep both stock in and stock out in same table. My methodology will need to maintain two rows of data for each issuance item. First one are to deduct quantity from issuance warehouse or location. The second one are to put quantity into receive warehouse or location. In this code, I loop through every column to get data store into value to update list. And also additional information that didn't contain in data grid view, information of the time issuance and issued by who. Then I call out the function from my library to start update data into database table. Beware of SQL injection. I created my own library to parameterize data insertion so that my SQL database won't get SQL injection attack. At this point, first row of data done, we shall continue second row. Second row data for table shall be totally different with first row, so I define another two container. Then I created loop statement to copy those column name and value that I want. In the meantime, I modify some value according to second row behavior, which is stock in. Again, I call out function from my library to perform data insertion at database table. The library I created called TRACK is short form for transaction access. If you are interested with how this library looks like, please leave your comment below. Basically, we have done the database update part. Thanks for staying with me until now. Let's try a run and see how it's going. First, check our access database. Currently, there are 101 row of data. Go to issues part, multiple item, then create 3 example row for testing. Click Release button. Then go back to Access Database. Click Refresh. Here we can see 6 new rows of data added. Each 2 rows represent once issuers. Of course, this is not yet final. We still need to do some settings so that the system can be more user-friendly. Click like for my video or click subscribe to encourage me for next video. As warehouse management system designer, I must think ahead users, what kind of mistake that users may make. So over here we can see although no data were being input, the release button still enabled for users to click. So we must disable the release button until necessary data are being keyed in. Go back to Design View. In Tools panel, look for Timer Control. Then add a timer control into the form. Change the name of the timer control. Double-click on it. Put a timer. Define a Boolean variable. Default its value as true. Loop through all rows in data grid. In if statement, check is item code being keyed in. If have, continue to check other column which require data to key in. If one of them didn't have data in it, then reset the Boolean as false. After loop statement, if the Boolean value are false, disable the release button. Else enable the release button. Since we use timer control, we have to initial it as somewhere else and also stop it when we don't need it. The best timing to start it should be at cell end edit routine. Let's go back to the cell end edit routine. Then add a line here. Enable multi-button dot start. Then timing to shut it off should be when we click cancel button. Go to Design View. Double click on the cancel button. Add a line here in the cancel button if statement. Enabled multi-button do stop. By the way, there should be message prompt up after data update is success or fail. Go back to subfunctional control module. Change subroutine to function routine, and I want the variable return as Boolean. Define a Boolean variable as succ. Default the value is false. Then go to the coding line where I perform SQL insertion. This library function did return with value. If any error while insertion, library function will return a string as X. So I define a variable here as string and store the return value from library function. When the return value or X, system shall exit routine immediately. For second line data insertion code as well, perform the same thing as first line, but if this is the ending insertion, so I added an else statement. If there are no error while data insertion, change the Boolean value to true. After change from subroutine to function routine, we must return a value. Main page code also need to be changed. I jump there by clicking the reference link on top of the routine. Then define a Boolean to store value returned from module function. If the Boolean is true, then I shall lock the data grid view, lock the release button, and also stop the timer from enable the button back. Check by trial run. Perform an issuance, then click release button. So after the data insertion done, data grid view and release button will lock. About the tracking number generation, I shall continue on next video. Thanks for watching. Please visit to my blog by clicking the link at below if you are interested to download the module for trial or leave a message for me. Click like and subscribe.